Thank, thank you, Gloria. For those who don't know, I'm Joe Willauer. I'm the Executive Director of the Butte Local Development Corporation and Headwaters RC&D. So Economic Development Group serving Southwestern Montana and Butte. We are everything inside Bozeman, Helena, Missoula. And with us today is Allison Corbin, who's going to be facilitating this with us. And Allison, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Allison Corbin, like Joe said. He nailed my name super hard. And I'm the Director of Business Recruitment at Big Sky Economic Development. I'm in my 10th year here and I have done community development projects and grant writing on into business attraction, which I've been at for 7 years, I believe now. So I'm old in economic development years.
Which is why we wanted to get together. We wanted to get some of the old folks on here, which normally isn't me and Allison, but we'll make an exception for today. So I wanted to give some background first on kind of why we started this. It was great to be able to have the MEDA conference in person. And I know everybody was excited not to be doing another dang Zoom call. Only complaint I had about the entire thing was the room was warm, which I think everybody shared in that pain. But at our organization, we're firm believers in embracing the suck. And if that's all we can gripe about after the first conference in dang near 2 years, we're super happy with that. But one of the benefits of that is being able to have side conversations, be able to run into people in the hall that you haven't seen in a while. And Allison actually brought up the idea and we ran with it, where some of the feedback we received during the conference was confusion of new members. And one of the benefits of the federal dollars that have came down is a lot of our organizations have more staff than ever. I know for me at the conference, it was pretty cool, especially during some of the Q&A things, where you'd see people that were grouped with other organizations raise their hand and ask a question. And, you know, the one that stood out to me was Sarah Converse. And it was like, holy cow, Sarah has like 3 people with her. And for the longest time, she was on an island by herself. And I know her organization wasn't alone in that, but it also provided an opportunity where it's like, man, there's a ton of folks who don't have a dang clue what MEDA is, what MEDA does, or what we're up to. And so Allison brought up the idea of saying, why don't we just do a Zoom and kind of open it up for Q&A and have those discussions. You know, what is MEDA? Why are we parts of MEDA? What do we see moving forward with MEDA? And so we wanted to offer it once a month, which Gloria sent out in the email. I know for our next one, Sarah Converse agreed to talk on it, and her background's a little different than mine and Allison. So I've got a background in land use planning, community development. From being in economic development a while, I've got more knowledge than I certainly did 8 years ago about the lending side and the small business programs we run. First gig at Headwaters was doing the food and ag side, so I've dipped my toe in there as well. But with Sarah, she's got a really strong background in community facilities and infrastructure. So for our upcoming meeting, we'll be having questions about that. And I know our team will be on that because obviously there's a ton of infrastructure dollars flowing through both the state and the feds to get them out there. And if anyone has interest in really kind of facilitating one of these that has experience with MEDA, we'd certainly encourage you to reach out to Gloria and take one on. So with that, I wanted to give a brief blurb about why I'm in MEDA. Allison, I figured you could do the same. And then we'll open it up to questions, and then I will put out a warning. So I know Allison and I both have a background in education. I worked as a substitute teacher for a few years. Allison teaches jazzercise classes. And so neither of us have any problem randomly calling on people if we get that awkward Zoom quietness. So this is your formal warning that we may just go down the list and call on folks if questions aren't being asked. But for me, you know, I started with MEDA. The first conference I went to would have been spring of 08 over in Hamilton. And to be honest, at the time, it's because my boss, Barbie Durham, said, you need to go. And I had a brand new baby that was a couple months old, and I wasn't going to turn away an opportunity to go get 2 nights of sleep without having to wake up and deal with an infant. And fortunately, I've got a very understanding wife who supported that idea as well. And since then, I've been engaged for a long time. I've been, I would say, to most of the conferences during that time frame. And there's a couple big benefits to me. So number one, it's really being able to work on the legislative side. That's something that's personally really interesting to me. It's an area where we've been making changes, starting with having legislative committee meet during the interim. One of the frustrations I've had is in the past, we've got a group of really powerful people throughout MEDA, but we haven't been as cohesive on initiatives as I know I certainly would like to see. And I think this session that changed some, and I know moving forward, it's an area we're really going to try and focus on, is increasing that legislative power to go get some bigger things done. The other one for me, and it'll tie directly to that, is really the interaction with your peers. So we joked about being old at the beginning, but realistically, I know myself and Allison, experience-wise, are higher up on the MEDA list, age-wise are lower on the MEDA list, and have been able to grow from MEDA. And that's been one of the things that's been hugely beneficial to me, is being able to build those relationships, whether it's someone who has a lot of experience. I call folks throughout the state all the time to ask questions. Paul Tuss, I don't think is on the call, but he can attest to that. I'll blow him up with, man, I'm experiencing this. And whether it's something internal on like organizational management or structure, or dealing with county commissioners, or even project-based where, you know, hey, we're going to apply for this grant. I've never done one of these before. I know you guys have. Can you help us out? Being a part of MEDA has grown that network rapidly and extensively, where, I mean, we talked at the conference a lot about we're in this together, and that obviously applies for the next gen project, but I think it applies to a lot of other aspects as well, of being able to have a group of peers that you can reach out to and say, man, I've really struggled with this. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. You've done this more than I have. What do you think about this? And right off the top of my head, I would say those are the two things that I've really seen a ton of value from for me. To, I could rattle off for the whole hour. Everybody that knows me on the call knows I have no problem talking. So I'll cap it with that. But those are the two that I think have been certainly right now the most value to me. Allison?
I would just echo, yeah, I would say, yep, to all that. I think for me, it's just having people to call when you face something new, because in economic development, it feels like now that I've been at it for a while, similar problems resurface and you just apply what you learned before. And it's nice to apply other people's knowledge instead of just your own if it's a first time situation. So I'd say that's been awesome about this group for sure.
All right, so for the format of this meeting, we wanted, number one, we will cap it at 1 hour. We want to be respectful of everyone's time, but we just wanted to open it up to questions. There was a ton of new folks. I know I see some familiar names and some unfamiliar names on the call. I'm currently MEDA Vice President. Allison's been engaged for 10 years. You've got a full hour with folks who've been doing it for a while. What do you guys want to know?
Well, Joe, Frederick here. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm very happy to be and proud to be part of MEDA. And, you know, when I attended the in-person event, which was a relief, as you said, from Zoom, it seemed at the end of the event, MEDA had reached a bit of an inflection point. And I categorize it, the business development angle of MEDA, and also the community development angle of MEDA. And my question is, are you seeing that? And is there a bit of soul searching going on with MEDA in that regard?
Allison, do you want to answer, or would you like me to?
You go for it, Mr. Board Member.
So I'll give you my unvarnished opinion, Frederick. I think MEDA's had some perpetual soul searching, which I don't characterize as a bad thing. I know, to me, one of the challenges is Gloria and Mike do an insanely good job. Like I can't say enough good things about the work that Gloria and Mike do. The term from my background in fishing we'd use all the time that certainly applies to this is herding grasshoppers. And if you can envision that, that's, yeah, Gloria's laughing because she knows she's chief grasshopper herder. Everybody else is a volunteer, and being able to commit the time to get these bigger things we want to get done can be incredibly difficult. And especially in the last year and a half, I think, like many organizations, it's exposed some of those areas where our workload starting March, 17th of 2020, we were all very busy before that. And then it was like, oh, here's a big burning fire. Why don't we just pour gasoline right on top of that and keep up with everything else you're doing? And so I think it did make a lot of people aware of some things where the community development side, I know, is a great example. Obviously, it's no secret to anyone who's been on here for a while. You can't have good economic development, from my perspective, without good community development. You can recruit all the businesses you want to town, but if you don't have that vibrant downtown, they may look elsewhere. And it goes the other way around for your existing businesses. If you want to be able to recruit employers and employees and get people to move to your community, you want to be able to say, yeah, we have this, and this. I mean, this is why people move to our town. And I think we talk a lot about the urban rural divide. And of course, there's some distinct advantages to that. I know in our region, yeah, we can potentially cite a 150 employee business in Butte. We can't cite a 150 employee business in Ennis or Twin Bridges simply because of population numbers. But that community development side is something that all of our towns, whether it's the littlest town we have, and I know I can speak to our region, a Lima Dell, a racetrack. I mean, we have places that are tiny, or Butte, where, yeah, we have challenges with our uptown because it's huge and hasn't been renovated to the level that most of us would like. And the community development side to me is equally as important. And I loved Brett's recommendation of maybe, yeah, we should be the economic and community developers, because you talk to anyone on this call and yeah, we're doing economic development. We're doing true economic development of job creation, leveraging dollars, investing in companies, but we're also spending a lot of time working on downtown master plans and providing insight to communities on, okay, yeah, this sidewalk improvement, is it economic development? Truly, no. Is being able to have your restaurants in your downtown spread out onto the sidewalk that's going to make a more vibrant appeal to visitors and residents going to help the people move to your community that we all want? Yes, absolutely. So to answer your question, I think both those are key components. And I do think we are at an inflection point, which to me is really exciting, because we've got an incredibly passionate group of people, which you could see if you ever attend our 7 a.m. legislative call. And it's provided a great opportunity for us to say, we know what we've been able to do, which direction are we going for the next 5 to 10 years?
Outstanding, Joe. Thank you. I would add that, as the state's first formal business attraction manager, right, for commerce, if there's any type of leadership or expertise that I could share on the business development side, tying in with my strengths, I'm happy to help MEDA and volunteer some of my expertise. So overall, we are successful.
Thank you, Frederick. We certainly appreciate that. How about others before Allison and I do the random calling of names?
So I'll throw one out if I could. Howard Shervum, Northwestern Energy in Helena. Always good to see Gloria. She always has that smile on her face. And for the last couple of decades, I don't think she ever lost that. So here's my question, Joe. I work closely with Brian Obert here in Helena at MBAC, and I know my counterparts likewise with you and others across the state. MEDA, I really look at the impact that you're having as an organization, that MEDA has as an organization across the state. With what's happening, here's just a curious question. With what's happening in the last year as far as growth in Montana, not only on the business side, but entrepreneurs that are coming in and individuals that are moving here to be located here and working from home or telecommuting. Is there a concerted effort, and maybe MEDA is the entity for that, is there a concerted effort amongst yourselves as far as the organizations in each of the different communities? At times we I think become a little protective of our own communities, and something is happening and we say, oh, you know what, this would be great for Helena or for Butte or wherever it might be. Do you as EDs of the different economic development organizations in the state, do you get together otherwise to kind of say, how can we work together as a state to bring these in?
Allison, I'm going to let you answer that because I know you do that really well.
So are you talking about like new people coming to the communities?
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking as we see heavy growth happening in Montana, maybe more so in some areas, but pretty much across the state. Um, I guess my question is there a effort that we're working together? I know we're working individually in our communities. Are we also working together to say, it may not be right for Helena. Maybe it's best in Butte. Are your leadership working together to make it a better thing for Montana, not just for the individual communities?
Certainly, from a business attraction standpoint, for the last, I don't know, maybe 3 years or so, we've been working, we work as a team. So communities that are a bit larger that are doing active business attraction, we get together once a month to talk about what's new, what's up, and in our own communities and what opportunities and challenges we see. And we've also partnered to do business attraction in an outbound context pre-COVID. So going to major markets where there are a lot of site selection consultants and really pitching the Montana story first. From a business development or business attraction standpoint, I think you always have to lead with Montana first. And so, and when a company is like, I'm in photonics, I don't pretend, and none of us do, that they should be in Billings or in Butte, maybe Butte, but for photonics, but not really. We all know what our strengths are and lean into those. And I think that more and more, I'd like to see the culture of MEDA, and I think we're getting there because of the commonality of our problems. Be leaning into how do we better the situation for everyone. And I think right now there's a lot of dialogue around housing challenges and workforce challenges that we've kind of been at the table for a couple of years now, but it's exacerbated by COVID and the desirability of Montana being elevated. So I think there's some good conversations happening, always more room to collaborate. But I feel like if anyone solves housing, give me a call. That would save us some time. But I think there's a lot of opportunity to share best practices too. And I think hopefully this can be a forum for that, and just learning who your peers are can kind of help that. I know that I pick up the phone a lot, especially when it comes to ag. I call Sarah Converse all the time and learn something every single time I call her. And then I'm like, okay, so now I got to figure out how to get the straw when they take the wheat and feed it to cows. So that's my current ag problem. But so hopefully that kind of answers your question.
Can I say something?
Sorry, Joe.
Go ahead, Howard.
I was just going to say, I do appreciate that. Because I presumed that was happening and that it's probably growing as far as the collaboration among, but I just wondered in the back of my mind if it really was happening.
Frederick?
Yeah, so in workforce housing, right? That is a subject that constantly comes up time and time again. And that's a commonality all throughout our great state. And I'm wondering if MEDA can play a role, because there's a lot of new technologies and new innovations, modular housing and other types of constructs, but it's really controlled more at the local level, local regimes, local inspections. They're not always so supportive of this new paradigm shift in how to build housing faster, cheaper, and better. And I'm wondering if we could help educate some of the local partners to be more supportive of this new generation of housing product.
I think that's a great question. And I think what MEDA has to figure out is, are we the best to do that? And we even wrestle with that in our own community as an economic development organization. Are we the experts on housing? Absolutely not. And so like in our community, we're doing a housing summit that's putting together like the realtor community, along with the housing authority and folks that are more familiar with various income level housing. and developers to have a broader conversation. So I think from my perspective, economic developers are the conveners of that, but I don't know that that's where we lead, but we're still trying to figure out that landscape, at least in our community. And I don't know how others are trying to manage that.
Yeah, I agree, Allison. It was one that came up at the conference as well. Is, you know, are we a mile wide and an inch deep? Do we want to be narrow that scope? And housing to me is the one that gets weird because it touches every aspect of our communities. And I agree with you, we're probably not the ones to be doing the tangible work, but we also have a pretty diverse network of people that we can get at the table. And it's, I mean, I don't see that being an issue. I don't see that issue going away anytime soon. I mean, the new data that was in the news this morning on Bozeman's housing prices, I mean, obviously that's the high end of it, but it's just continuing to rise and it impacts both sides. I know over in Billings, you guys see that. You guys were listed as a boom town in the Wall Street Journal last week. We see it on this side of the divide and it's everywhere in between. So I wish I had a better answer, but certainly one that's high on the list.
For the record, we also send each other in the collaboration note. Anytime we see articles on each other's communities, then you have to send it to the other community. And then like there's either like a jealousy moment or like a why is this newspaper lying moment, you know, like that's also a necessary collaboration effort.
Yeah, our most recent one was being named one of the ugliest 18 communities in the country. So we got to wear that as a badge of honor.
I see in the chat, someone, Ben asked, totally new, what is this organization best at or trying to be best at? Boy, I'll take a stab at that, Ben. So I think what this organization is currently best at is networking. Like, so networking folks from all of the different sizes of communities together. I think economic development can be really isolating, especially if you're in rural communities. And it even is here because try explaining to somebody what you do as an economic developer is always hard. So it's nice to have peers to lean on. So I think we're really best at networking and helping each other learn. And personally, I think I would like us to be best at being the experts on economic development tools and resources. And so while we know what exists today, I would like us to create more legislative change on what exists tomorrow to more effectively compete against other states in the nation. What, Joe, I don't know. Joe.
I have nothing to add to that one. I think you're spot on. We are fantastic at networking and making those connections. And I do think there's room to grow in other areas. But like I said on the previous question, to me, it's just a good opportunity to be able to build the brand of MEDA. And more than anything, showcase the good work we do. And it's been an area of weakness. Anyone that's been in MEDA for a while, like we laugh about it because we're great at doing the work and we have significant room for growth on sharing those stories. And it is an area Allison agreed to take on the marketing communications committee. And that's going to be relaunching here this year. And just getting out, whether it's the legislators, county commissioners, or other members, businesses, just showing what we're doing, which is so incredibly important.
I want to kind of extension on that. I know we've talked about this in some of our meetings, is not just being the knowledge base and the place with all the resources, but also getting to that point where MEDA is the go-to, right? Where legislators and lawmakers and leaders know that, oh, I have a question about economic development or community development. I need to contact somebody from MEDA. And I think that's something that will come with the marketing and all that stuff. But I know that's something we've struggled with and we hope for, and I think should be a goal.
Yeah, and I think there's pretty much, 100% consensus on that being the end run, is really taking that spot on the statewide stage. So yeah, we are the group to call.
Absolutely, and there's so much technical experience too. It's amazing to me, like when I do call someone to be like, how have you done this? It's like such a wealth of information. It's a shame that we don't have the recognition level because of how much expertise, how many years of experience and knowledge there is in this group. So I totally agree on hoping that we can kind of flip that position, because I think when I think about a lot of folks, like there's a lot of new people, but then there's a lot of people that have triple my experience. And so they've been at it for, 30 years instead of 10. So there's a lot.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there, Ben. Ghostbusters would be a good analogy. We might have to figure out how to work that into some future marketing. I think Steve and Rick would look good with some nice photo editing in front of the Ghostbusters van.
I'm all in. Be sweet. So I'll throw this back to Ben. Ben, if you're new, what is the most, I don't know what role you're in economic development, like which part of it, but what's been the most challenging element of being new to economic development?
Is it all right if I just speak? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
So I'm not actually that new to economic development, although I come from non-traditional economic development. So I've worked with inventor and entrepreneur clubs that emanated from Terry Whipple's group in Wisconsin, which is where I grew up. I also really believe in the power of community and the network effects. So I appreciated what you guys and Joe were saying earlier. I think the hardest thing is actually, for me, understanding the variety of sort of opportunities as far as, there's all these different kinds of grants, there's different government agencies, there's cooperatives, there's all kinds of angles on how to do economic development. And even an issue like housing, while you guys were talking, I was thinking, well, yeah, housing is really an income problem, because if we all had more money, we wouldn't care that house prices were going up. And I always joke that, and I think this is true, nobody wants affordable housing. And everyone who owns property wants their property to appreciate in value. We maybe don't want it to grow so fast in value, right? Because big shifts are difficult. But so for me, it's like understanding all the information. And I feel like having people to lean on, right, who specialize in these different areas is really helpful. So that's where the network is great. But I think the reason we need that as professionals in this field is to stay on top of, the changing environment, the ways to use technology better, and the ways to create stronger networks, right, and use funds better. So to me, it's the information.
Great. That's good insight.
How about are there any other new MEDA members who would answer the same question? What are you looking to learn? With no answer, I'll assume everybody knows everything. How about any other general MEDA questions, or even, economic development questions you may have? Because Allison and I are spearheading this, but looking through the list, we've got folks from the state, we've got folks from private sector, we've got folks from different EDOs, just kind of open-ended.
So I guess as someone who's relatively new to the economic development world, I've been doing this a little less than 2 years. Dara Dinas, I'm with Eastern Plains Economic Development, and I'm in Glendive. I have a couple communities in which it's very hard to get communities to engage and basically see that there are some things that could be changed that could be beneficial, or how do you help bring that change to them in a way that they will be willing to accept? So what, I guess, do you guys have to say in like working with communities like that?
Get a hold of Gloria and ask about the community. I always forget the new name, Gloria. I'm sorry, the resource team assessments. I know it's called, yeah. Honestly, I know that the one that we did in my region maybe didn't result in the ripples that we wanted, but it was a great experience, and it does exactly what you just asked about. It brings everybody together and gets everybody on the same page, and I think gets them to see maybe a positive path forward. And then what I've been using when I meet with communities that are saying they want change, but then can't seem to move past that like agreement stage, is getting them to look at on the MEDA webpage, the previous projects and the success stories, and finding a community that might be similar size or similar needs in another part of the state and connecting them with through MEDA with that experience. So that'd be my suggestion.
Sure.
When it comes to small, like I'm not in a small town, but there's like little neighborhood like groupies in Billings. Like there's different areas that you live in, and they're all very specific and feel very prideful about the area that they live in. And so I think one thing that I would suggest is that meet them where they're at. So that if that's like on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. at the church, like they'll be there, or if that's a neighborhood task force meeting, or I don't know, in a small town it might be like the bar. I don't know. Like meeting people where they're at, and then making sure that you can. I think economic development, especially in contexts as like a small community like yours, it's building the relationships first. And so going to those places with intentionally thinking about what value you can bring to that conversation of what most pains them. Like, so, and even with outreach, I try to do this too. Like when you're talking to a business, it's like, it could just be a pothole in front of their like business that's like making their world like horrible because they hit that pothole and they hate it. And it's like the worst thing on earth. And so the best first step to me is always saying, well, let me try and help you with that. And then try and fix that small thing. And so I guess maybe it'd be to go to where they're at, try to build the relationship, and then see if there's some small like hurdles. And sometimes I think as humans, we can't see past the little things unless like they've got to be moved for me to like see bigger. And I think that that's where I would lean into trying to create change, because it's hard to see past the pothole if that's what is at the front of your mind every day.
I completely agree with both Allison and Tori, and the only one I would add is have a lot of patience. I know for me, we have big visions, we take on too much, and try and go accomplish some pretty incredible things. But being able to go take on a lot of the things we do takes a heck of a lot longer than we would want. And that's been one, I really strongly agree with what Allison just shared about showing up. I know our team talks about that all the time. And the last year, it's been really difficult. You just cannot, in rural communities, I think it's even more of an issue. You cannot get things done via Zoom or a phone call like you can from walking into one of those meetings and just sitting down and listening. And then having a ton of patience, say, oh yeah, we know. Yeah, and that the small towns, to me, the community development side's as much, if not more important. And it's like, oh yeah, we want to get this park done. We have the resources to do it, but this park's not going to be built next summer. Like we have to set a realistic time frame for what this is going to do. And then just personally, I know for me, being able to say, okay, I know we could do this right now, but realistically, it's going to take 18 months for us to accomplish this, and making sure it's clear to them what the expectations are, and then clear to yourself, say, yeah, this is going to go way longer than I want, but we're going to get this thing done no matter what happens.
Awesome. Thank you all.
The worst part of economic development to me is that like projects will just be like get done, and especially when I was like really young when I started in this, I'm like, oh yeah, it'll be like a year, because a year felt really really long. And I guess as you get older, maybe you're still shorter. But like there's one part, like our Lockwood TED, I had the first meeting with Steve, like my boss, in his office in like 2013, and that thing still doesn't have water. I mean, it's just like mind blowing. So it's just having the patience to like find the little wins along the way. Like even if you're visual, like make the chart of like, when we do this, like we'll go, yay, because it's just such a long game.
God bless the accomplishment sheet that my boss has for us, because if we didn't have it, I'd be like, what's getting done?
I'm sorry.
Hey, guys, this is Christian. I'll jump in first. I'd like to say thank you to Gloria, as always, for her great skills in organizing these things, often at the last minute. Very well done. And I look forward to participating as we move forward in the future. And thanks for organizing them every month for quite a ways out. It's nice to be able to plug things into the calendar far in advance. Thanks to Joe and Allison as well for managing the conversation today. Great to hear from you as always. To answer the question that Allison asked of Ben as well earlier, the largest hurdle for me starting my position here in economic development in Montana after leaving Phoenix and working in economic development there for over 15 years was just the primarily the organizational structure. I came from a state where you had 70% of the population in one county, and the vast majority of the new businesses coming to the area were falling in or around Phoenix and primarily in Maricopa County. And so it was kind of easy to manage. You had one group that was doing all the tech council work. You had one group that was doing business attraction. You had one group that was doing X, Y, and Z. Here, trying to figure out, up until about 2 weeks ago, I thought the entire state was covered by CRDCs. Come to find out that's not the case. You've got other EDOs that manage certain areas that are on my map are white. And I'm trying to figure out, first of all, what counties those are and who manages it. And then you come to find out that there are other EDOs that kind of overlap with those organizations. So, who's doing what? And for me to be able to go to Paul Tuss or to a Joe Willauer and say, hey, this is what, we have a question about doing X, Y, or Z. Who do I need to talk to for, help on a project that is looking to land in, Twin Bridges or wherever that case might be. And so that was very useful. I'm also blessed in the fact that I've got Tom Kazerski and Mary Kragel sitting right next to me, and between the two of them, they got 50 years of experience with Montana state government. So they usually know what's going on as well, but not always at the local level. So that was the biggest barrier for me. A slightly smaller barrier, but equally important, I think, for someone new to Montana is just to come to the realization that not everyone here wants economic development. I run into a lot of people, particularly ranchers, who don't want businesses in their backyard. They don't want things being built, industrial parks being built on their land. And I really never ran into that. See you, Frederick. Have fun with the Israelis. I never ran into that in Arizona. It was like, okay, Intel wants to expand, or we have a new electric vehicle manufacturing company that wants to land. Everyone's moving forward in one direction. And particularly working in Jefferson County with the county commissioners, I come to the quick realization that there's a lot of pushback on those types of projects. So that was a bit of a struggle. And then I did want to bring up 3 quick things. One, I don't know, sometimes I wonder when I send out a group email to Gloria's MEDA list, or whether I send out individual emails to CRDC directors or primary economic development organization directors, whether it's received or whether it goes into spam or what. But there's a couple things that we've been sharing information on recently. One is the Pacific Northwest Region's Pacific Northwest Economic Region's 30th Annual Summit, which is taking place in Big Sky, August 15th through the 19th. We just received word that Christy Kraft, who's the former U.S. ambassador to the UN, is coming. It looks like Secretary of Transportation Buttigieg and maybe Secretary of Ag Vilsack will probably be in attendance. Montana Senator Mike Cuff and Northwestern Energy CEO Bob Rowe are the primary leaders in organizing this thing, and they've really done a bang-up job of pulling it together. They're expecting about 250 people to participate, about 200 of which will participate in person. If anybody's interested in coming to Big Sky for that, let me know, and I can see what we can do to get you there. But also on the 19th, which is a Thursday, there's a policy tour at Bridger Aerospace in Bozeman at the airport. So we're going to be talking about the challenges facing the Pacific Northwest in terms of this fire season and future fire seasons, and how we handle that issue. And we've got Bridger Aerospace, Ascent Vision, and Neptune Aviation, which are kind of leading that. And it should be a turnout. That's free to the public to attend. If you're interested, or any other economic development people that want to come, just let me know and we'll get you in the door. The other thing is the Opportunity Exchange just went live last week. Hopefully you got some information. There's a training tomorrow at 3:30. Dara, oh, there you are. Hi. She participated in the last one. Unfortunately, it was the first. I couldn't figure out how to do a share screen on Zoom. I'm kind of a goofball when it comes to technology. Sorry. So I mean, I rely on my 10-year-old to teach me how to use my television at home. So we got that worked out. So tomorrow training should go well. It's about half an hour. The first project went live on the Opportunity Exchange for Montana. That's a project located in Butte. It's the Praxis Center for medical simulation training. And it's a $30 million project. So that's the first one up there. And we're really glad to have that one up there as a shining example of what the Opportunity Exchange can do and host. And the last thing that I wanted to bring up is more, it's kind of a comment, but it's also a question, particularly for you, Allison. And that is, what is MEDA doing in collaboration with GoEd right now in terms of furthering a relationship for all the economic development partners with the new staff at GoEd?
GoEd. So Governor's Office of Economic Development currently is just the two, just Brett and Sunny.
Yeah.
And so Brett, we loop into the conversation from a business attraction standpoint. So I still like lean on him. And I also lean on Brett. Brett's been really helpful in like sourcing who the right person to talk to is, especially as the new administration like gains, like figures everything out, because there's been a lot of resorting. But from my understanding, they're kind of stepping aside to be more, our connections is more of commerce. And so with Director Osterman taking the lead on business attraction and some of those efforts, and all of our programs being housed in commerce, and all of the ARPA, majority of the ARPA allocations are also running through commerce, or being touched by commerce in some degree. So it feels to me like a shift, especially from previous administrations where our main point of contact was Governor's Office of Economic Development. I definitely keep Brett involved, and he's incredibly responsive and helpful on whatever it is you're needing. But I see him more as like a concierge to like figuring out where to go with what. And then it's often ends up being more of a commerce conversation. So that's my perspective. I don't know if others want to jump in on what they're seeing.
I certainly agree with the shift. I mean, it was different under previous administrations, but you know, change is all right. And we've had to adjust kind of where we're asking for things, but that works. We had several questions from Russ here. I'll rattle the first one off and then we can take a stab at them. How can we maximize the knowledge, relationships, and collective intelligence of all MEDA members? I know from my end, the conference is a huge one. The digital conference was great. The in-person was better. We're fortunate to be part of the CRDCs, which have a lot of knowledge, especially for rural communities. And I think one of the big reasons we wanted to have this call hosted is to be able to start those relationships with new members, to say, hey, you've got all these people that are available to you. Like, yeah, we're going to talk on this Zoom call, but don't hesitate to reach out to people as well. I've never had anyone in MEDA say, oh no, I don't want to share about that, or hey, we don't have an answer for that. I think that's one of our biggest strengths, is you can just call people. And so this call, I would say, to me, was a step in the right direction to be able to get those relationships built and be able to provide that opportunity for people to come ask questions. Because I know we're leading the first one, but yeah, like Sarah hosts one, or after this call with Tori, I'm going to definitely volunteer her to do one. They do things different than we do, and that's how you learn. How can we get updates from individuals that may have an impact on others? Russ, could you expand on that one for us?
Sure, happy to. Sorry, why is this screen so weird? Oh, I know why, because I got the camera on the other side. There we go. An example is say you're going to a conference in Denver, or you're going to have somebody come in from Seattle. And I know I've done it in other organizations, not here in Montana, but if there was a way for you to say, hey, I'm going to this conference, or I've got Joe Smith coming in from Denver who works at ABC Company, there could be a way, and this is just data, where someone else might say, hey, wait a minute, if you're going to that conference, could you see if you could find out this guy, talk to this guy. I talked to him the other day and he was thinking about Montana. Or, Joe Smith's coming into town. Great, I'd love to talk to him as well. There's another company in his town that I'd like to learn more about. The collective knowledge and contacts and relationships that MEDA has throughout the world, really, I think they're underutilized. I know other states do this to some degree, but I think with MEDA being a unique organization, we have the opportunity to really capitalize on something like that. And it all comes down to just basically a database that begins to grow as people put more of their specific abilities, relationships, destinations, whatever. It can grow quite quickly.
Allison, I know I don't have an answer to that, but I like your answer, Russ.
Yeah, I think the more others understand what we are doing, like if we are communicating our successes and are doing a better job of just communicating what's possible, I think that it gets better. I think it's gotten even better with our business attraction group by just meeting more regularly. So I think that's definitely something we need to review as a strategy of leveraging the relationships that we have. And I think there's also then the whole Montana ambassador side of that too, which is its own relationships and contacts and ways to leverage that Montana connection. So I think I agree with the underutilized, and I think it's a lift on figuring out how we make sure we have those connections going strong.
I've promoted this to ambassadors for at least 10 years now. And so any efforts by MEDA would be excellent.
All right, I'm going to tick down the list. How can we promote best practices? I think one of the things that's been beneficial of the pandemic is getting more comfortable with Zoom and having more of these type of meetings where, normally these conversations wouldn't have occurred unless we're at the conference or everybody happened to be at a different conference like tourism. But I think we can leverage the fact that everyone knows how to do this and is a lot more comfortable with it and start to get organized on some of these things. And maybe a similar program to this one, or maybe even transitioning, just doing a topic for one of these that is best practices. That to me seems like a pretty straightforward way to go after it.
Another aspect of that could be an FAQ on the MEDA site where, Joe, if you found a way to get a certain type of a grant or award, or the best person to contact in an organization or whatever, you can start building those frequently asked questions to act as a repository so people don't have to go out and reinvent the wheel.
I like it.
It's been interesting, Joe, too. And I'm just thinking about how I think that the legislative meeting, it's not just legislative anymore because we're managing the ARPA stuff and the different relationships for MEDA within the state. And I don't know if we should rename the group or not make it at 7 a.m. in the morning so I'm actually awake. But I just feel like that's a pretty robust conversation always. And out of it, there's always you need to talk to so-and-so about that specific issue or that type of thing. So I just don't know where that goes from here or how we leverage that conversation, because I think I found it to be extremely insightful and helpful in our work.
All right, we've got one more from you, Russ, that also includes an answer. So how can we help individuals, organizations better understand the challenges and opportunities in other parts of the state? Hint, we can better utilize data and expand city clubs throughout Montana. So I'm going to pass that one right back to you, Russ. Why don't you share that one with us? Kind of your thoughts.
Their city clubs have been around for 100 years. Some of the major communities, Chicago, I think Seattle, they've got huge organizations that meet like every day or have events every day. And the whole concept we brought forward, and it was me and the mayor and Dan Camus came through with this probably 10, 12 years ago. It's a very simple process where you gather the community together to listen to a speaker or a panel on a subject that's pertinent to the community. They are giving 15, 20, 25 minutes to make their presentation. And then you have tables, usually of about 10 people, who then do what's called table talk. Table talk is where they then introduce themselves to each other, if they haven't already, while they're eating lunch. And they start talking about the presentation and try and come up with a single question. Someone from the table is nominated to be the spokesperson. Somebody from City Club then walks around the room with a microphone and goes to each table. And that individual then stands up and expresses the question, which is then responded to by the panel or individual. It isn't an effort to try and really do anything. There aren't any decisions made. There isn't an agenda of next things to do. But what it really does is it breaks down barriers, and it brings the community much closer together and much better able to understand what the problems are, what the opportunities are, et cetera. So my vision has always been, and especially with Zoom now, there's no reason that if, say, Butte has somebody coming in who's going to talk about an issue pertinent to Butte, other communities couldn't join in through Zoom, and they may, in fact, even be able to ask questions. But every single City Club has been recorded and is available on our public TV station. And it provides an incredible history of what the community was talking about or challenged or what they were trying to do at that particular point in time. And people can go back and review it and say, this is why they made that decision, or this is why the city council decided to do it this way. This next one coming up on the second Monday of August will be our 4 candidates for mayor, who will all present their views. And then individuals, at the tables, will be able to ask them very pertinent questions, which will be recorded and then shared throughout the community. So I'm hoping that, and it's not a big push to get these started, but I'm hoping that somehow MEDA can maybe be in the forefront to help these start to occur throughout the state. And I think it'll really break down a lot of the silos that we have about misinformation or misunderstanding, about what other communities and regions are doing.
I like it. We did about half of what you just described towards the beginning of this year. We titled it Building Butte, and more than anything, we realized we have the opportunity to learn from a lot of good folks. And one of the cooler things about Montana is you have access to folks, whether it's the governor, senators, all the way down the line, and started an online speaker series that meets the first Wednesday of every month. And we've had Senator Tester, Governor Gianforte, Brent Donnelly from SBA, our chief executive, JP. What we haven't done is open it up to questions. And after hearing you share that, maybe that's something we'll have to look at again or try to incorporate that table talk element, because that sounds pretty cool.
Well, the other thing is to record it so that those people who can't attend can watch it either on TV or they can watch it, from the website. And I'm going to post the City Club site right now, so you guys can take a look and get an idea. But I'm just, I think it's a good idea. I think MEDA could really, really change Montana a lot with something like this.
I like it. So I'm very good at ending deadlines. We've got 2 minutes left. Allison, did you have any closing comments?
I put my phone number and email in the chat. Seriously, just save my cell phone number. You can text me whenever. That's like the fastest way you could ever get a hold of me. So if anyone ever has questions or you are in Billings, let me know. Especially you, Eastern Montana. We're like buddies. I feel like Billings is like the Eastern Montana big, like, I don't know, big brother or something like that. But happy to connect and help with whatever I can.
It is the #1 community for remote workers.
Yep. We've got a housing problem. We've got some fiber problems. You're going to find me with a backhoe pretty soon because we have some sewer problems. It's fine.
All right, well, I'll wrap it up real quick. Thank you everyone for attending. We certainly appreciate it. Next one, Gloria should have the invite out for, I believe. Allison, thank you for coming up with this fantastic idea and being willing to be the test dummy with me. And thank you everyone for participating. And of course, last but a long dang ways from least, Gloria, thanks for herding the grasshoppers and helping us execute on this. We had a follow-up call with Jermaine a couple weeks ago after the summit, and he pretty much said, when are you guys going to just do this thing? And I said, damn it, we're just going to do it. So we appreciate everyone hopping on. Have a great day out there. And
Thanks, Joe.
some of this smoke will go away. And we'll all talk soon. Take care.
Okay.